The Payments Council of India has made a submission to the Prime Minister's office requesting the reconsideration of zero MDR or merchant discount rate policy for UPI and RuPay debit cards. Now, this submission includes a proposal to introduce a controlled MDR framework that ensures there is continued digital payment adoption. For more on this development, I have with me Vishwas Patel, who is the chairman of the Payments Council of India and also the joint MD of Infobeam Avenues. Mr. Patel, thank you very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18. First, just to make it very clear to our viewers in very simple terms, when we're talking about this reconsideration of the zero MDR regime, who exactly will be impacted? Because from a customer's point of view, making UPI payments, whether on merchant outlets, e-commerce sites, through their debit cards, through UPI, they continue to remain unimpacted, right?
You're 100% right. Look, PCI always stands for the benefits of the consumers, right? And we want to make digital payments happen. How do we take it to the next 300 million UPI users is our core concern. So whatever we are proposing, there is absolutely nothing that the consumer has to pay more while paying through either a UPI or a RuPay debit card.
Got that. So with that clarified, tell us about what exactly PCI has proposed when it comes to reconsidering the zero MDR policy, and what was the reason behind selecting the 30 basis point MDR for large merchants? How did you arrive at this specific rate?
Okay, if you understand how the payment industry works, right, there is a cost of plastic that is issued for, say, a RuPay debit card. There's an ATM card which is used for. There is a cost for the entire program. Right, even on the acquiring side, when we go across in the next hinterland of the country, there's a cost of marketing it, putting it, training the merchant, getting him to use this cashless kind of a digital payments. So if you want to keep increasing, there has to be money. And when you see that almost 80% of the transactions are UPI, and then there is zero money to be made, so there is hardly any incentive for any of our members at Payment Council of India to have that motivation to go down into the hinterlands and deploy, right? If we want this continuous growth, now we have already transgressed where 350 million people are already there on UPI, right? How do we take the next 350 million, right? And this is going to be a tough challenge because there will be language problems. There will be this next level of people to get them onto the digital payments ecosystem. So it's going to be increasingly difficult without any monetary rewards at the end of it, because anything free never works, right? So what we have requested the government is that, yeah. Okay, so what we have requested the government.
So tell us what exactly you've requested and how you arrived at the rate.
Okay, so what we have requested is that there are total 6 crore merchants who are accepting UPI across the country as of today, right? And out of the 6 crore, 90% or more constitutes the smaller merchants, right? And we are saying that we please continue this zero MDR and the incentives for the smaller merchants. And the next page is also going to be adding more and more the smaller merchants. So out of 6 crore, almost 5.4 to 5.5 crores are the smaller merchants, which are not going to get affected if there is our suggested MDR. What we are suggesting is this 30 bips, very controlled MDR is for the large merchants. Large merchants as defined by RBI. Now today, this 10% of these large merchants which are there today, they are anyway accepting credit cards and debit cards. And for credit cards, they are paying 1.8% MDR. So if they were to pay 0.3%, right, on a 100 rupee transaction, they get back 99.7, right, rupees back. And they have to pay this 30 paisa or 30 bips on a transaction. I don't think so it will be a problem for these large merchants. Right, and whatever the incentives that government paid 3,600 crores last year, right, most of it was processing for zero MDR for these large merchants.
Okay, Mr. Patel, very briefly, since we're running out of time, the industry's talked about doing away with the zero MDR for the longest time. How real is the proposal this time around? What is the kind of timeline the industry understands that the government will come back on whether or not it will reconsider this? And to what extent will that 30 basis point MDR cover that 10,000 crore cost of maintaining UPI annually?
Look, there are huge costs that the payment industry endures to make this growth growing. If you look at global standards, right, today, this year we'll be crossing 50% of the world's real-time transaction happening in India, and for that, a lot of costs is required. There is innovation, there is acceptance and the servicing of these merchants across this country. Then there is cost of onboarding, following all the RBI compliance norms, which are increasing day to day, the cost of technology, cost of servicing, so many other operational related costs, and it cannot go on this zero MDR anymore. The push that has come to the serve right now is that the incentives the government has reduced this year from 3,600 crores, which was approx last year, to 1,500 crores now, and the volumes has grown more than 40% this year, right? So how will the whole industry survive, and how are we to keep this growth going? We want to keep this growth momentum going, and the government has to understand that to sustain this growth, to sustain this kind of massive boost that the digital payments have, right? This kind of a small MDR, a control MDR on the bigger merchants, right? It will really help boost the ecosystem. And we are saying that for these large merchants, we don't need the incentives. Why should government pay taxpayers' money in incentivizing transactions for processing on these large merchants? Right? That's been our ask to the government. So we have written to the Prime Minister's office. We have written requesting the Prime Minister for his intervention in resolving this.
All right, Mr. Patel, we'll wait to hear more on, what the government decides in the matter, a key issue for the payments industry. Surely, thank you very much for your time here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.